After Effects.
Can you bring that too? Yes.
I am recording. So I'm just importing the files, which was called it's this one. So we put it in here. I have this thing here. Hopefully there's something in here. There we go. So it's actually not too bad. It's almost good enough to just use. I'll put this in composition, like here. So now I have this. You can see it's not too bad, actually. Right, it works. So first of all, I need to create a background for this. So I just create a layer, new, solid. You can just make this white. Okay. Put it there. Put it on the background, like so. And then I can add to the top layer. I'll add a little bit of shadow. I can either do it manually by having a copy of the layer and then creating it, or I can just use one of the effects called drop shadow. Put it on the top layer. There you go. And I can then change the distance and the direction. I think it was something like this, and then change the softness. So it was close to this, I think. See, it's perhaps a little more down, not so much in the top, but it's
more down.
Yeah. So right here I have it all over the place. Yes, but not this way, because this is just a drop shadow. But I can do this, say shadow only, and then I can of course do things to this. So for instance, make this smaller, and then add the original sequence on top of this again, like so. So I can then just
move it down.
Yep, I'm moving it down here. So I go to position, and then I can move it down like this, and I can change the scale in the y-axis so that it's smaller. So something like this. So I get right.
But then you have to move the shadow away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it okay? There's a shadow there.
It wasn't moved.
Ah, yes. True. You notice things. Good. Okay, but that's a small problem. I mean,
You can always just play with your
it's
pieces.
just this goes like this, and then just make this layer here, which is the shadow. I can just animate it. Now I really didn't want to get to this, but in After Effects you can animate things by using these small stopwatches. So if I click that, it will animate it. You can see it gets a little diamond shape here,
Yeah.
and then I go to a later stage. So for instance, on here there should be nothing, so I just turn this down and it's auto animated, so it will simply blend off right there.
Oh,
So easy.
so easy.
And let's just have a look at the background here. It's like very bright at the top, and there's a bright area at the bottom.
Dark.
So let's try to create that. This white solid I need to change, so I select that layer and go to Layer, Solid Settings, and I'll just make that slightly gray, maybe so. And then on top of that I can create what's called shape layer. Go. I could also draw it in Photoshop, but I'll just put a shape layer on top, create an ellipse here, maybe something like this, make it white, and make sure it doesn't have any edge on it. Just move this down a little bit. And this shape over here, you can see that this has it's named ellipse. I can go in here and change things for this, position and size, change the stroke and the fill, and I can also change the transform of it. But I can't feather it, but I can do other things.
Maybe you can't.
Can you blur it?
Yes, I can blur it. So I'll just leave it. I'll just leave it at this, and then do another one again, because I had a smaller one at the top, I think. That's what I remember. Like so. And then this layer, I'll just add a blur filter. So go to blur and sharpen, and just a fast blur. Apply that there, and that blur I'll just use to do something like that.
Yeah. It's too dark.
It's too dark, the background. Okay, we can fix it. Okay. So these two layers are on top of each other, and I can, like in Photoshop, I can add something like an adjustment layer in between. So the adjustment layer will affect everything beneath. So I can use something like a color correction node. So brightness contrast, for instance. Put that on the color or the adjustment layer, and then I can make it brighter or darker. There's actually in After Effects there's another option instead of doing this adjustment layer, because sometimes if I only wanted to affect my two top layers here, then it would be different. You can see when I move the adjustment layer, I affect everything beneath that layer. Another option is to not use an adjustment layer, but just select the layers you want to do something to, and then right click them and go pre-compose. That will create a new composition containing these two layers. So if I double click this, you can see I have one composition with just this in it, and that composition is used here. So that's what is called nested compositions.
Oh.
And that's probably the biggest strength of After Effects, in fact, that you can do this, because otherwise you'll have 1,000 layers, but this way you can nest it. So if you wanted to have just a logo somewhere, you can have the logo in one composition, and then you can nest it somewhere else. Yes, it's like groups, exactly. And then I can just apply the brightness contrast to this composition here and make that slightly brighter, like so. One thing I feel maybe is that the edge here is a little iffy. I could do things to that by selecting that layer and then go to matte, and then use something like a matte choker. So if I use that, you can see that it cleans up the edge, but it also makes it very thin. So it's a question of how much you want to take away from it.
That's good.
It removes a lot of the motion blur, actually. See if I turn it off. So that's an option. What we could also do is simply add some blur, directional blur, while this happens. So if I use directional blur, put it on here, and that should of course be horizontal, and just make it blur more, like so. So we can have it like that. Should happen around here. So perhaps the frame before, it should be not there at all, key, and then over here it should be gone again. So I can add another key here by, this is actually a little tricky, I need to go down here, I can't do it up here, but you can see that the stopwatch is on here, and to add another one with the same value, I can either just change this so it'll update, or I can also click this little diamond shape here to add a keyframe with the current value, and then go to the middle here and give it a lot of blur, like so. So we get the effect that it's blurring a lot when this happens. So let's just see the result, and we can do that by clicking the RAM preview. I'll do this full screen, because then I can get the full resolution. So now it's building the animation. That's why it's just going a little slow. And then we have the result. Yep. It reminds me of a Quickly logo.
It does similar.
Yeah. So I bet it's the K that does it. Okay, so just escape to get out of that. And that's it. Of course I need to render this, so just make sure that I have the full composition selected here, not the other one, but this one. And then go to composition, add to render queue, go in, change the lossless to H264. It remembers my settings from the other day, so that's fine. And then I need to change the name here. Goes up here, just go logo. And maybe we should have some audio on, just for fun, right? So to add the audio, I could take the audio from the original file. It's in this one. Just import that file. Right? So it's in here. So if I play that, we should get the...
Hjælp lokalsporten til bedre træningsforhold hver gang du tanker. Få et OK benzinkort gennem din lokal.
Okay, so the audio is on there. And then I can just use this thing here and put it down here. Turn off visibility, but the audio is on. So I have this thing here.
Hjælp lokalsporten til bedre træningsforhold hver gang du tanker. Få et OK benzinkort gennem din lokale forening. OK.
So the audio is not completely synced, but one thing that people often has a problem with is that they press play and there's no audio. You need to do RAM preview, or if you want to hear the sound while you're scrubbing, you can hold the control key.
Sounds like something.
The slam is like here. We can also see the waveform if I do this.
Oh.
There we go.
Obviously, that's the
So we can go like, it's like here it hits. So I probably need to move the audio file over just a little bit, like so. So let's see what happens.
Hjælp lokalsporten til bedre træningsforhold hver gang du tanker. Få et OK benzinkort gennem din lokale forening. OK. Alt. Hjælp.
So
Well, yeah.
so we can do it like that, and
We can
then
also stop it just before it says the last vocal.
yes, we could either cut it down or we could just fade out the audio, so it goes like,
Forening. OK.
and then remove it here. So what we can do is just have the audio at full here. So audio level there, and then a few frames later we just turn this to -48 dB, and then we have the full thing. And I go to my render queue. I can just go, oh actually this is important, I need to turn on audio, otherwise I won't get the audio out. And then I go render, and it will make the video. Blim, blim. And it should be here.
Hjælp lokalsporten til bedre træningsforhold hver gang du tanker. Få et OK benzinkort gennem din lokale forening. OK. Hjælp lokalsporten til bedre træningsforhold hver gang du tanker. Få et OK benzinkort gennem din lokale forening. OK. Altid billig benzin. Hjælp lokalsporten til bedre træningsforhold hver gang du tanker.
It's amazing.
Få et OK benzinkort gennem din lokale forening. OK.
Could you technically slow down the video footage of the, well, I guess.
Side by side.
Slow down the video footage of what?
Of your own card, so it would match with the audio.
Oh yeah, but ideally I'd have to re-render everything.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, there is of course in After Effects a time,
Distortion.
yeah,
Time distortion.
You can also just add frames in sort of empty frames.
Yes, but what the ideal thing here would be to add a time warp, which is here. So if I go time warp,
Let's do the time warp.
and this changes the animation. So what it actually does here is it uses something called pixel motion. Just have to make sure it's on. It is on. So what it does is it analyzes every single frame, and then it calculates
Okay, so
the in between.
so it's not just like editing a video.
So if I make this really slow, you can see the problems with it.
yeah, I see.
You can see that it starts to do warping, because what it does is it looks at the image and then it tries to figure out what is in between. So for something with a lot of motion blur, it's usually okay. But this is of course quite wild. I'm slowing it down by
Try and make
a factor of 20. What?
Try and make a ramp preview.
Of this?
Yeah, with
It looks a little iffy.
Let's go slow. Let's
You
analyze
can
everything.
Yes. It's just building the clip.
Hjælp lokalsporten til bedre træningsforhold hver gang du tanker. Få et OK benzinkort gennem din lokale forening. OK. Hjælp lokalsporten til bedre.
But you get the idea.
Yeah.
But for something where maybe I figure out that I just need to change it by a little bit, so if I run at 80% speed, it will look fine for most of it. So I just do this.
Hardly any distance at all.
There you can see funny things happening.
Yeah, would like that.
Hjælp lokalsporten til bedre træningsforhold hver gang du tanker. Få et OK benzinkort gennem din lokale forening. OK.
Boy, what happened to the shadow?
It's we're working with time warping. So what it does is it's trying to figure out where everything goes. You can also set this to just use frame mixing, which will probably be better for this, because what it does is that it just takes in between frames and blends them. So it actually just blends. You can see here that it's like two frames on top of each other. And that will look better in this case. But that's all there is to it.